come and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble gum.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
Live exclusively for WCPT AM and FM in Chicago and streaming worldwide at chicagosprogressivetalk.com. Standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
To do the vibes.
Oh, we are in the home stretch. Of course, before we hunker down into whatever the next 4 years holds for us as a country, you know, I think it behooves us as we move into the final days of this maniacal election cycle to remind ourselves, A, how far we've come, what we've been through, what the stakes are. I'm kidding. We've all been through that. Like, most of the people listening to this have done nothing but, especially over the last week, be complete junkies about everything from the polls to new revelations about the internal feud going on in the FBI from the pro-Hillary and anti-anything Clinton crowd. I don't even think there's a pro-Hillary crowd, actually, in what I read. There's just a normal FBI and then some crazy people inside the FBI who've made it their life's goal to take down the Clintons since, I guess, 1979, when they were turned down at a key party in the Hamptons. Then there's the myriad of information coming out about this week, from the sublime to the ridiculous, about Donald Trump being his Russian ties. We're going to talk about one of his fantastic, I guess, a foreign. You can't even call him a foreign advisor or a policy advisor, because the guy has no official title within it, and he just basically writes little like emails to the campaign, and they list him as an advisor, or Trump said he was an advisor, or kind of denoted that he was an advisor, but they haven't talked about him much, since it turns out he was basically a go-between between two big oil companies and the Russian government, and one of those big oil companies was actually just a Russian front for its own state-owned oil, and then this weird business about Melania Trump working in her as an illegal immigrant, effectively coming here and stealing work from American models. All the work they go through, eating cotton and trying to keep themselves in size -3. And here comes this woman from on a visa program, without even a visa, and then finally, when she does get one, it's the kind that her husband wants to get rid of, except when he doesn't for about a week during the primary, and then he does. This is the weirdest experience of my life politically. Here's the thing. Okay, I've certainly been through periods in my adult life and in my pre-voting age, when I was in high school during the Reagan years, where the seriousness of the election was very much impressed upon me by the media, and also by my own feelings about what was important in terms of the legitimacy of issues I cared about, and whether or not they were going to see the light of day. Not the least of which the Reagan years, entering into a further catalog of that by Bush becoming president the first time. Then the Clinton years being this kind of respite of sort of national progress, and with its hitches and starts, and definitely the Republicans having it out for Clinton from the very beginning. But he's a super popular president. It's hard to get away with going after him as hard as they do. And then they try this whitewater upon whitewater upon whitewater, and what they ultimately come to is that he lied about an affair, and then in the lying about an affair, that technically qualifies as lying in front of, lying to Congress, even though it had, everybody at that time was beginning to have this feeling like, look, this is a marriage problem. This is not a country problem. And in terms of, Gingrich loses his job because it turns out that he was impeaching this guy, or attempting to impeach Bill Clinton while he himself was having a nearly identical affair circumstance. even more egregious in some people's minds and how he carried it out with his then wife. And I mean, there was an extraordinary part of that, but the idea is that Clinton was so popular, even in spite of this, he was going to get reelected. And then Gore comes in. We have the entire, he distances himself from Bill Clinton, won't run from him with this idea that he has this stank of this affair and all this stuff on him, and therefore that limits his ability to, govern effectively. And so what Gore's going to do is run to the right of Bill Clinton on a morals level by just kind of not showing up with the guy. And loses, in my estimation, and I think a lot of people feel this way, gained 0 votes in that activity. No one who was going to vote for Gore would have hitched that vote against him if he would have showed up at an event if Bill Clinton had campaigned along with him. As a matter of fact, it would have created an even more fervent thing. And then again, this is a man who was impeached for lying about an affair. Gore wins Florida, but at the time of the recount is losing by 500 when the Supreme Court stops it, hands it to George Bush. We all have to kind of bite our lip and suck it up for the next effectively 9.5 months, 10 months. And then here comes 9/11, this rubber stamp presidency of George W. Bush. Suddenly it goes from this, he'll be in bed by 9 o'clock, this kind of, they finally let Quayle be president attitude. And then all of a sudden it's the largest attack on American soil since Pearl Harbor, the biggest terrorist attack in the nation's history. And suddenly this unimportant act of 2000, people voting for president with this kind of nihilistic 90s attitude towards what difference does it make, really, really matters all of a sudden. Then we get into, well, you can't switch a horse midstream when it comes to 2004. We're in the middle of this war. We're in 2 wars, and we're fighting Al-Qaeda, and Osama bin Laden's out there, even though, I don't really think about him that much. I don't really care about it, I don't really think about him that much anymore. And so 2004 comes around, everybody just kind of goes, Bush all but coasts in because of this war president concept. A wholly unqualified human being in my mind, is president for 2 cycles. So in that second cycle, though, a young state senator from Illinois comes on the scene and lights a fire in everyone that this guy could one day be president. And in the one day, I think a lot of people were thinking 2029 and a half. I don't know when, but some imaginary number when America's ready to have a black president. Not realizing that the racial issues in our country are so deeply ingrained in our national identity for the negative and the positive that because one of the things people forget is a lot of the conflict in the United States is not because we had slavery, it's because we ended it. The ongoing fight, the fear, the anger, the dystrophy between the emotional response to it has to do with a group of people still angry that slavery was ripped away from them as an economic and social order tool, and they still hold a grudge over it. And another half of the country who is embarrassed that it ever existed. Has that's also got to be part of our national healing conversation. And in this 2004 speech, here comes Barack Obama with this impossible name, but this fiery and beautiful speech about America being a unified force because of all of its diversity and because of all of its voices. Really fantastic. And this put off in this ever-extending goalpost of the president being black at one point in our future. And then 2008 rolls around, it becomes a strong possibility. We in the Democratic Party have, and I include myself in this because I've been a registered Democrat since I registered to vote for the very first time in Chicago when I was 18 years old. And from that, we have this, the Democratic Party has ends up with its two front runners fighting each other, the first black man and the first woman to be, our primary is about that choice. And ultimately they run against John McCain, an insider-outsider of his own party. And it becomes a crucial election because of the voice of the nation. We reach a point where electing Barack Obama is an act of national growth. Not just because he's a qualified human being, not just because he's incredibly brilliant, but it was a statement of national identity that we do represent the all men are created equal ideas that were laid forth, if imperfectly, by the founders in the initial documents that created our government. And absolutely historic. Absolutely. And then that falls into normalcy so quickly that the second run, when he's running again, Barack Obama is running against the first Mormon presidential candidate from a major party. That's on a religious level, that's huge. That's a big deal, just intrinsic that, it was extraordinary that a Catholic could run when Kennedy ran. And here we actually have the Republicans have put forth a Mormon, which, by the way, markedly is possibly one of the reasons why he would not have gotten why he did not get the votes he needed in some quarters to make him successful, because it was a much more narrow vote. And now, after the break, that brings us up to today, and 2 days away from us, the most extraordinary election of my lifetime on so many levels. We'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT820.com. Thank you for listening. Thanks for watching on the Ustream. I'll be with you guys in the chat in just a second. We have a lot to talk about today. Stay right there. Sorry, my game started making noise in the middle of that. I'll shut it off during. Oh, that's funny. Mm-hmm. Oh, thanks, Bison Lawyer. I just think it's important to look at this in concept. Because, wow. And it's going to go even further. Well, yeah. Hold on. 1 second. I'll be right back. Yeah, I think we all have election fatigue, Julie. Thank you, Vodafone. We need all the help we can get. I am indeed streaming from the kitchen today. That's right. I decided...
1 minute.
Okay. I decided thank you, kind of out in my place would be fun. So I just dragged my stuff out there. And I'm in the middle of building something, so my desk is kind of a wreck. Yeah, we're going to talk about Melania's speech. Oh, by the way, Lady B, can you pick up Melania Trump's speech that she gave this week?
Okay, I'll look for it.
The audio from that? Thank you. Yeah, the place has a microwave. I don't use it. No. I love that. Oh, yeah. It would be scary, what a point for you to visit. But I don't know if he, if what's his name ended up in office. I don't know that you could get a visa to visit. I don't know what the heck. Billy, she copied it from Hillary, too.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, mega worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So in my recap, by the way, of where, the election cycles leading up to this, from essentially Reagan till now, I also conveniently left out the fact that the Democrats were the first to float a female vice president in Geraldine Ferraro, and of course, Kennedy being the first Catholic was almost this first foray into discriminated against communities in the United States, being, getting up there. And think of Catholics in that term, but that was absolutely a factor. And, of course, Gore Lieberman, choosing Lieberman to be his VP as the first Jewish man to be a vice presidential candidate. So the Democratic Party throughout its history has been all about firsts in terms of representation of the electorate. That we, as liberals and progressives, by hook or by crook, by gosh, we're going to display the reality of the American demographic. And the pushback in many ways from the Republican side has been almost specifically stark contrast to that. The act of actually saying, you know what, it's not that we as the Republican Party couldn't drum up a female presidential candidate or a Latino or African American or even an Asian candidate over time. We're just not gonna. They might come up through the ranks a little bit, but we're gonna hammer them right back down. They're not really gonna get a chance to be there. They'll be there as as window dressing about what policy positions we'll have. But ultimately, it's always going to boil down to an authoritative white guy. That's the only thing we're comfortable with. And in terms of, and nothing made that more obvious than Sarah Palin, John McCain's combo ticket, in that Sarah Palin had this 70% likability rating, 20% electability rating within the Republican Party, meaning that they loved her, they loved her message, they thought she was a great voice for conservative memes and ideas. However, women should just stay home. Ultimately, that's the prevailing attitude that they have. And that when it comes to people who, serve as our president, as senators, as, Congress, mayorships, what have you, that those people should be reflective of white moneyed landowners, because that's what the founding fathers had in mind. And that when it comes to voting rights and the ability for, in a democracy, for every single person's vote to be counted, the more that starts to happen, the more that becomes a reality, the more you get two things happening. One is an overt push back against it, which is all the laws that we've seen, all the strategies, North Carolina Republicans literally doing a report, Republicans funding a report to find out, a study to find out how black people vote as in the most common ways, like what's the most familiar ways for black people to vote, and to start attacking those first when it comes to eliminating people's ability to vote. ID being one of them. And I've talked about this a couple of times, in that one of the best ways to, the reason voter ID laws become a sticking point is on two fronts. One, you shouldn't have to pay to vote, period. Nobody should have to pay to vote. It's a free democracy. You have the right as a citizen to vote. If you have to prove your citizenship to vote, then the state has to provide you with a method for doing so. You have to have the ability to prove you're a citizen without it costing you money to prove you're a citizen, because I don't have to pay to vote, period. It's a right, not a privilege. That's how most people look at it in the United States. except a lot of Republicans say, well, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. There is no intrinsic federal right to vote. It's it's more of a strategized element of government, but not really a right. And therefore, it's sort of a privilege, and therefore it can be attached to things like privilege, like driving a car. So therefore, you need an ID. The Supreme Court ultimately disagrees with that, but there are all sorts of ways to, manipulate and mess with that. So even if you do provide people with a voter ID, for example, something that they can get for free, and that you deliver to houses of people who wheel themselves out of their house once every 4 or 2 years to vote, actually have the ID necessary to do so when they're 100 years old, for example. One of the ways that throughout the South, especially small constabularies, small towns, have this habit of, if they pull you over and you have for a busted taillight or something, they take your, for speeding, they take your license and you get it back after court. And so there were these big roundups effectively before, for decades, before Election Day, effectively confiscating through false traffic stops Democrats, and they start with minorities, and then they go after, that's Gerald's car, he always votes Democrat. Confiscating Democrats' IDs is the idea. So you can't prove who you are. And then when you do show up, they give you a provisional ballot, and then they throw the provisional ballot in the garbage. So at the point where we have gotten, where our election is 3 days away, it has certainly been the most absurd election cycle. It is certainly in many ways historically important for two reasons. On the just like the election of Barack Obama, on a national identity level, to finally elect a woman president of the United States is an extraordinary, important, and a bit day late and a dollar short. But we deal with the reality we're in, not the reality we would like in terms of this kind of stuff. That Hillary Clinton being the president of the United States is an enormous step forward for the United States in terms of national identity. But also, unlike to some degree Barack Obama against John McCain or Barack Obama against Mitt Romney, instead of there being a policy difference between these two human beings, largely in terms of John McCain, a war stance concept, and in terms of Mitt Romney, an economic concept, as vast as that chasm is, there is an incredible amount of, by comparison, they are ferociously normal compared to the threat to our democracy that is Donald Trump, and I don't say those words lightly. Because my problem is, I don't think Donald Trump gives a damn about democracy. As a matter of fact, as the head of a company, and most CEOs will tell you this, that, and as a director, when I direct things or whatever, directing and being a CEO are very similar in the fact that they're technically not a democracy. You might have a board, you might have shareholders or what have you, but at a certain point, all the decision comes to a needle point because something has to get done. And depending on the project and how involved you are in that thing, whether it's your company and you're the CEO or whether you've been hired to manage it or whatever, you have a very distinct attitude towards how that should be created, how those decisions should be made. And coming from an entirely negotiable CEO mentality, if not figurehead robber baron mentality, Donald Trump has no idea how a democracy really works. And when it does happen and his children rise up and start complaining to him, he bucks against it very hard. Well, we'll be right back. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk. I'm at Hal Sparks on Twitter if you want to tweet me during the show using the hashtag HSRPM. We'll be back.
I have that clip. It's the one from yesterday in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, how long is the speech? It's not long. It's maybe 10 minutes? I don't know.
What I have is the full clip, but I went up to her speech. I don't know how long is it.
You have the full clip of all I'd want is her talking. Yeah.
Yeah, I went up to there when the start of her speaking.
Yeah. Julie in our chat room said it's about 10 minutes. I think that's about the gist of it. The clip I want is about where she's talking about bullying. So if we can dig that up over the next little bit, it's near the end.
Near the end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Well put, Bison lawyer. Here's the problem I have with making fun of Melania Trump is that I don't have a problem with people who have an accent. I've always appreciated the idea that anybody who has an accent, especially a really strong one, it means they speak one more language than you do. There's nothing wrong with that, and good on her for, doing it. The problem that she really has is because we have a history in this country, thanks to Zsa Zsa Gabor and Green Acres, of the idea that someone with her accent is someone who comes from wealth and thinks this is all disgusting, darling. And she sounds like a cross between like a Bond villainess and the costume designer from The Incredibles. All I do is talk, darling. Whatever. No, Southern accents don't count because that means you don't speak another language. It means you messed this one up. It's the same thing with like harsh Chicago, Bronx, big New York accent. That kind of thing. Do that. It's not. That's not a plus accent. That's a minor minus. It's colloquial. There's a great. There's a great statement. When you say something. Depending on where you are in the United States.
20 seconds, and I'm still looking for that part.
Okay. It's near the end. I mean, we may end up just playing parts of it, starting from the beginning, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
So, needless to say, this election cycle, and we're going to play a couple of clips, and we'll get into kind of the news of the week as we go, but I figured it would behoove us to look at this election cycle in context. That I personally have not had an issue voting for Hillary Clinton. As much as I appreciate Bernie Sanders, and as much as if he'd have been the nominee, I would have been 100% comfortable with voting for him as well. I have no reservations about Hillary Clinton, and I will even go so far as to say I'm proud of the idea, and I think she's incredibly competent to do the job, and actually has some good ideas, and may have a depth of caring about certain issues that the previous presidents haven't had, I think Obama would be the closest to having it. But certainly about children and families as a primary issue, and not just because she's a woman, but because she's made it a specific point of her life. Then I am 100% comfortable with voting for Hillary Clinton, and I'm excited about the idea of doing it. And I'm not just saying that. I really do feel that way. And I've kind of held that close to the chest a few times, and I've even caught myself not outwardly speaking about it because this weird pushback, not from Trump fans who it would, in much the same way that every time we've had a presidential candidate, they've been the most liberal, what have you. The only reason they didn't do that with Hillary was because they couldn't operate on that, because the blowback to that statement is that Donald Trump used to be pro-choice, used to think she was great. So anything they say was she's had the most liberal record or what have you. At the time she had the most liberal record, Donald Trump was agreeing with her on everything. So, and there's plenty of tape of that. So they had to go with the crooked element, basically about unproven concepts. Where there's smoke, there's fire, essentially, is the Republican current anti-Hillary election meme. That being said, I like Hillary Clinton. I like her as a politician. I think she will be superior to her husband in many respects, in terms of decision making. And so I voted 2 weeks ago. So there's a tremendous amount of pressure off my shoulders. But it's one of those things. It's like the end of an action movie or something where you've pulled the lever. Now you're just waiting to see if, as the bomb clicks down, if it's going to turn off. I think I cut the right wire. But in terms of this, this election, the national identity aspect, that here we are as progressives, as Democrats, genuinely working to elect the first woman to run this country in its history, after just electing the first black man to be president as a party. And, this is an extraordinary time to be alive in terms of politics, especially if you're a progressive, a liberal, a Democrat, or a democratically leaning independent, or a progressive independent, or whatever you want to call yourself. If you're, if the old kind of Union Guard aspect of calling yourself Democratic, or the establishment nonsense scares you away from saying that you're a Democrat, that's fine. But you can't actually, if you take a step back and you look at this election for what it is, not what the pundits would have you believe, if you almost could watch it through the window of a news cycle much like the 70s or 80s, where 6 o'clock news telling you real stories after they've been vetted instead of just kind of innuendo and what have you coming out. The extraordinary obviousness of all the allegations against Hillary Clinton being largely innuendo and fabrication, and elevated concern. She may have been hacked, and therefore she put the United States at risk. Was she hacked? There's no evidence that she was hacked. Well, then maybe she made a better decision on how to use it, because the State Department was hacked. That in old news cycles, that would have made it to the news alongside the conjecture moments that happened with it. So if you look at it through those and all the Trump ties to Russia and the inner working aspects, the legitimate governing entities that are complicit in some of this stuff, and the vetting of, say, WikiLeaks or Melania Trump's claims that she did have a visa initially, back when she initially made it, that she did always work legally. That would have been worked out before it made the air. But since we're in this constant news cycle, 24-hour news, it gives a different picture. And so it behooves us to step back and look at it from the picture of, okay, what do I actually know? What facts are out there? What's the reality I'm currently dealing with? Who's the candidates? What do they stand for? What will they most likely try to make happen when they get in there? That is incredibly important. Just as a voter anyways. And the reason I say this is because that applies to your down ticket races. That if I can, anybody within the sound of my voice, if I can ask you to do anything during the next 48 hours, if you're planning on voting on election day, or if you haven't already voted, if you're planning on going in on election day and making a day of it, which I appreciate you for, and I'm excited for you, and I hope the lines aren't too long, and I hope you get in and relatively out, and you enjoy the beauty of being part of a government and a country where we have a peaceful exchange of power that comes from the voice of the people. That's an extraordinary thing. It should never be taken for granted. But from the down ticket races, even in that news cycle of the 70s and 80s, they were still invisible. Your judges, I think, are probably one of the most ignorant points for most voters. This point of ignorance, because unless you stand before them, you almost don't know. They don't have any money to run. They're elected, but they distinctly determine how crime is handled in your city, what cases get priority. It has an immense impact on your life in terms of not just crime rates going up or down, but long-term aspects of the crime. Why is the crime rate going? Well, I'm going to clean up the streets. Fine. I'm just going to arrest everybody, put everybody away for 5 years until I need to get elected again. Then about a year before I get elected, they start coming back out again. I go, we got to clean these streets up again. And I did it before. I can do it again. Because I just arrested everybody and got these, people put away on, for nonviolent drug offenses, wrecked their lives. Now they're coming out. They can't get jobs, so they're doing petty crime. Crime rate goes up, and then you run against your own effective booby trap you set. Those kind of things. Happens all the time. But it's the unfortunate part of an overwhelming part of this election cycle, the extraordinary cult of personality around Donald Trump, and the idea of electing the first woman president as a follow-up to the first black president in the Democratic Party, that our eyes are so much on that a lot of times we lose sight of those elements. In California, we've had some amazing, measures on the ballot. In Los Angeles, there's this Proposition M, which is a Metro Rail bond initiative, which would change the face of the city over the course of 20 years just by its existence. Even if it fails, the attempt at doing it will be a benefit. You can argue financial failure in it in 10 years, but still show a positive impact in the citizens of the city's lives for 45, 50 years to come. That's the amazing part of those kind of things. That those kind of initiatives, those kind of ballot measures, bond initiatives for schools and those kind of things, while they will sometimes blow back as financially untenable later on, they cost more than they were supposedly worth. The impact is such a huge ripple, much like people who have been saved, their lives literally saved by the Affordable Care Act because they had insurance when they didn't and they got sick, and that insurance saved their lives, gave them the ability, or no more lifetime caps, or a kid being able to stay on their parents' policy. Those elements are so incredibly far-reaching in what they do that government, when it works, when you have people who are invested in making government work, it reminds you why your vote matters. I'm often taken aback by how frequently people talk down the American public and how they talk down society as a whole. I don't trust people. People are crazy. This world, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, especially Republicans. We're surrounded. It's a death trap all around us. And yet, every day, they go to work or they go to a friend's house or what have you. They get in their car. They drive down the street 45, 50, 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. And the only thing separating them from a car coming in the opposite direction, which if it hit them because it's going at the same rate of speed that they are, would be an order of magnitude of what their speed is if they were hitting a wall. the only thing separating them is a yellow line, and the idea that yellow line means something. You literally, we all operate on that every single day. That 330 million people in this country live side by side, and 328 million of those people daily get on the road or go someplace where they literally their lives are in the hands of other people simply because they operate on trust. And you can call it you can think about drunk drivers, you can think about accidents, you can think about people not paying attention, you can think of a sovereign citizen just deciding to, suicide by traffic. There's a trillion reasons why it should be a scary concept, and yet we get on with our lives. Voting should be like that. Voting should just be like driving to get where you want to go. Are there pitfalls? Yes. Is the road bumpy sometimes? Absolutely. But what's important is where you're going. And you can't hide in your house and be afraid to get there. Vote. We'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Do we have Melania? Can we have this? My husband is always screaming about how badly the middle class is treated by the people. Criminy.
I think I got it. She starts off talking about respect and stuff like that, and then how people are treated badly or whatever.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Holy smokes. I thought it was Utah, wasn't it, Billy? Isn't it more per capita porn purchase in Utah than anywhere else? I remember learning that fact when I did stand-up there years ago, and it hasn't changed. That's funny, Rocky Mountain Mike. It's great. Because she's basically doing Zsa Zsa Gabor, let's be completely honest. Yeah, it is Utah, Carl. I think I'm going to talk about unprecedented when we come back. Here's the thing. I've said this before, and I did this when I was talking about my stand-up when I was in Utah. I'm struck by the fact that Utah spends more money per capita on porn. The curious part for me is there's so much free stuff on the internet. I mean, you almost can't not. We literally have safe search, so you don't accidentally bump into porn while you're looking for normal stuff. Just whatever, while you're trying to shop for, auto parts. Like, you can't shop for auto parts without safe search on, or like porn would come up. It's that ubiquitous on the internet, and yet who pays for it? Like, if you're paying for it, it has to be so much further down the... Yeah. That's amazing to me. Just
10 seconds.
Thank you.
Now back to the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Okay, so anybody who has seen my stand-up knows that words matter to me, okay? That they have a special place in my heart, that when you're using them, especially when they are hyperbolic in any way, and you're using them to make what I would consider an ordinary point, that makes me nuts. My girlfriend was laughing at me this week because I was talking to the television, with pundits on, just telling them to cut it out because they were, first of all, you have Donald Trump using this hyperbolic stuff about a crooked Hillary is involved in a corruption like we've never seen before. Nothing like this, folks. Never seen anything like this before. Nothing like this has ever been seen before. I love, by the way, I think my new favorite Trump is reading Trump, because he uses his pinched finger. Ladies and gentlemen, no one has ever seen this level of corruption ever before. Nothing like it, folks. Ever before. Okay, hasn't been happening. Never happened. So bad. At this point, and then he goes back to his high reading voice. The reading, where he says there is nothing like this has ever, and we've never seen this level of corruption before. Okay, first of all, they have no proof of the corruption. This is all innuendo. And you can believe that or not, but the facts are what they are. There's no investigation currently. The current investigation as it goes has not had an indictment. Even if they had one, that doesn't prove that someone's guilty. You've got a long way to go in the legal sense before you start complaining. And these are the same people, by the way, who deny rape victims a voice on the internet. The alt-right loves to go, these people shouldn't have a chance to be, make these accusations in the first place, because they're trying someone in the court of public opinion. And then that's what Trump comes up and does, and Obama and Hillary are having to stick to the facts, and it gets really, it's like fighting an octopus with your hands tied. Like, why am I even doing this? But anyway, so this, never before have we ever seen anything like this. It's like when somebody in the news says this is an unimaginable crime. It's one of the things that drives me crazy when somebody on a news report goes, an unimaginable crime. It's not unimaginable. Somebody not only thought it up, but they did it. And there's other people who've done it. So no matter what nothing is unimaginable. The limitations on your belief shouldn't be based on what you can think up. The human brain can think up anything. You're just saying you're uncreative or you wouldn't think of it. Say horrifying, but unthinkable is impossible. Everything's thinkable. Okay, so similar to that, no level of corruption that you've ever seen before. Okay, Nixon resigned because of the Watergate break-in. Of course, meanwhile, by the way, J. Edgar Hoover in drag is, watch JFK and the number, the corruption that's occurred in the United States government over the course of 200 years pales in comparison to the internal corruption of other countries, and it's still extreme. There is no unthinkable crime at this point. And then, in many ways, you'll run across this thing with WikiLeaks, both about the American, Defense Department, the DoD. Leaks that have come up about them, about strategies that they've had or war game concepts that they've run, and the same thing with the DNC going, well, if they do this, we'll do this. If they try to run this bad thing against us, we'll say that. This back and forth, because scenarios are the entire job of an entire class of anybody in business or in politics, and certainly in terms of the military. It's your job to go, okay, first principle, what happens if we're attacked like this? Okay, our natural reaction would be this. Is that the best way to play it out? No. 15 different versions have to be come up with for every possible scenario. The entire movie War Games was based on the idea that there are so many strategic and variant possibilities, from internal suicide by a country literally launching its own nukes at itself in an evening by accident, to them launching at every country that doesn't have nukes all at once just cuz. That all those scenarios have been run by the DoD at some point. The DNC has run scenarios as far as what their messaging will be if Hillary was actually indicted, to Donald Trump getting arrested for the rape charges that he had the civil suit filed against him last week. There are people sitting in a room, that's in their entire job. So the fact that it was talked about should not be indicative of whether someone's trustworthy or whatnot. The question becomes, are you prepared for that circumstance? Or are you not prepared? How far are you willing to go? Do you acquiesce in those circumstances? Do you go, well, this is actually a point where there is no tenable line, and what we would do coming forward in this situation was we would literally go out and plead guilty, put someone forward, and do this. Like like everybody runs that, and in the Democratic Party and in the Republican Party on a lot of fronts, or at least they have up till now. Trump campaign isn't doing that. Trump campaign isn't even running scenarios where they lose. Trump isn't even the concept. The Democrats have 4 concession speeches at this point. Like that's what establishment learns over time, is that there are variant circumstances in every possible scenario. We boil down to the 3 biggest possibilities, and we create hedges against the 2 we don't want. And that's why I personally think, and I'm curious to see if this plays out this way, that I think this will be a trouncing this Tuesday. And not because of the huge, because there's a huge variance in polls, because there certainly are in certain areas. Nationwide, we're looking at a 4 or 5% spread, which looks normal by every other standard. In the last go-around, most places you had a 4% spread for Obama. He ended up winning by close to 6%. In terms of real numbers, I think there's a very strong chance that Hillary could win by 10 points, and not because of an enthusiasm aspect, or not because of the theory that voters are inspired by the first female candidate, but simply because the Democrats are treating this like an election, with the goal of getting elected so that they can work on the plans they would like to see happen for the country, like adults. Like someone who is hired to do a job would try to make that job so they could get the next job. So that if this had to be put on their resume, they could look back and go, yeah, I did a great job and everybody loved me. And that's why I think I'd be great for this job. Like there's a future. The Republicans are literally running on the idea that the country doesn't have a future, and that they just want to be running stuff when the rapture happens or it all blows up. It's the weirdest counterpoint to this. And I think it has a lot to do with this absurd notion that we've attached to words like, and like I said, words matter so much to me. Elite, establishment, rebellion, outsider, insider, all these useless words that are more ammo than conversation. It's like the phrase special interest is the most useless, generic form for anything any particular candidate cares about. It's absurd. When we come back, we're going to play a little bit of, I have to play some of this Melania Trump speech because, well, I'll tell you when we come back. But ultimately, it's the best anti-Trump speech given all week, even including the president's. Come on, man. It's stunning to me. Like if you went, how could we sneak a speech into Melania Trump's teleprompter? What are the 3 things we would like her to cover to undermine Trump the most? We'd never be able to do it. And to my mind, that's what was in it. That was what was in the speech. And it points to the reality on the ground versus what the Trump fantasy land is. We'll be back. And your call, 773-763-9278. I'm Hal Sparks. I have to admit, chat room, that if the ground game on the Republican side was anywhere close to normal, I would be nervous. I would have concerns. but like it's so far from being a reality in any sense, though, you know, that it just, honestly, it just does not, I'm not worried about it, like, in that regard. That's the one thing that makes me feel like, from just an election cycle standpoint, that we're in a bit of a safe zone nationwide, and that's why I also think the margin will be bigger. I'm curious what you guys think about that too. There's always a little bit of a delay in the chat, so yeah, Nancy, I there's tons of yard signs. Charles, we're not a racist country. We're not. We're absolutely not a racist country. We're a country that deals with racism. I don't buy that. You know, no, it doesn't. I won't stand by that concept. It does not hold true. Even a little racism goes along. It doesn't. Because fighting that racism, being on the front lines of dealing with it as a society, goes a long way too. It's important. No, we're not phobic. We're dealing with it. Look, you want to see racism? Honest to God. I've traveled the world over. Talk to Chinese people about Japanese people and black people, and you will find like a percentage of people in China who look at everybody who isn't Chinese as an alien from another planet, like never even seen it. They stare at you like, you know, the gods must be crazy. And specific people, you know, if you start talking to them about the Japanese, they're just evil at a cellular level, and not like how rednecks talk about Muslims, because a redneck who meets Dinesh D'Souza, you know, or a, you know, who's Indian, or who or a Muslim who is on their side effectively, would be like, he's okay by me, man. China. There's tons of countries where they're racist against everybody except their group. Like, it's staggering. Charles, we are looking hard at ourselves. That's what that's what looking hard at yourself looks like. That's why I said that we're not a country that's dealing with the ramifications of slavery. We're a country that's dealing with the ramifications of being the first country to end slavery. This is being on the front lines of this as an ideal is a big deal. It's a big, you know, it's not easy as a society to have been the one to stop it. And it's important to acknowledge that all the time. Because if you fall back into, we're a racist country, we're racist, we're full of racists, we're homophobic, we're heterophobic, we're, you know, transphobic, we're Islamophobic, whatever, it nullifies the real argument that we're in a growth period, that we are indicative of growth. Because if you... Internally,
30 seconds.
Okay. Internally, we're saying things like we're a transphobic, we're a homophobic country, or we have, you know, we're the country advancing all of it because we're dealing with it internally. Because, you know, we're like in couples therapy with our own self. You know, we're trying to make it work, and ugly stuff is said in the process, but the whole purpose is actually moving in that direction. That's right. Transformation's an ugly process sometimes.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn pus-faced little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
I'm always reminded by that intro how awesome Jane Child is, by the way. And if you don't know her, she had a song called I Don't Want to Fall in Love and another song called Welcome to the Real World, 80s kind of industrial pop, dance music, whatever. Just awesome. Jane Child, awesome. For the record, look it up on iTunes or what have you. I highly recommend those. Welcome to the Real World, I think, was about living in the era of Reagan and what if this guy blows us all to bits? You know, because we really had a genuine concern at that time. We were being taught to hide under our desk. You know, it wasn't that different from now. In some ways, you know, kids coming up now thinking that, an Islamic terrorist is going to blow up something or affect them is not that different from what kids thought about the Russians when we were young. And our relationship, quite frankly, with the Middle East 30 years from now will be indicative of how it kind of was with Russia, like our relationship is with Russia now, in reality, especially as we get off oil, which is, after this election is over, I honestly look forward to getting back to the policy aspects of how we can actually benefit the people in this country beyond just, this is big. We have to deal with this. This is not, avoiding talking about policy because this is incredibly important from an election standpoint, but because you want these policies to go forward. Now, small confession to make, and then I'm going to play some audio. So there was this great, and maybe maybe most of you saw it, but there was some great video where Donald Trump was sitting with Melania Trump, and he said she's going to be making a couple, 3 or 4 speeches, and she had this look on her face like, I am? She was totally shocked by this piece of news. What? And we don't know if that's because they had an agreement. She'll do one speech, and then all of a sudden he's like 3 or 4 speeches, like, you're going to be doing this everywhere. And, or if she didn't even know she was doing one, like he just volunteered her for that, which it seems like from the look on her face, that seemed to be more of the level. And I don't know if there's Botox involved in this circumstance. I wouldn't rule it out. So the fact that she made as much of a face is even a greater act of shock on her behalf. Now, I don't begrudge this woman marrying into money. I don't begrudge this woman attempting to manage her crazy husband, who perhaps, and this is a perhaps, I'm not saying this is what's going on, but if she did marry him just for the money, that she wants to make sure he doesn't ruin the whole thing. She doesn't want him to blow it so that the little money that they actually have are, whatever. Anyways, point being is that I get her managing this circumstance, and there's a lot of women out there who married somebody who they thought was kind of reasonably okay, that had a couple of quirks, and then ended up being nut cases. And men too. There's a lot of men out there who married women who they thought were completely reasonable, and then they turned crazy on them. That happens. I'm just saying, in couples, it's not that weird. So if she ends up in that situation, I don't begrudge her that situation. And, the difficulty of dating in Eastern Europe for women aside, it's an issue. So they get her to make a speech. Now, the last time she gave a speech, she got in a bunch of trouble because she cribbed from Michelle Obama and effectively got, it became a running gag. Well, this time, she comes out and gives a speech, and can we play? I want to play one of the clips. There's basically 3 main points that she goes on, and this is the one that stood out to most people as being a "what the hell are you talking about" part of the speech. Let's play that if we can, Lady B.
Of their own someday. We need to teach our youth American values: kindness, honesty, respect, compassion, charity, understanding, cooperation. I do worry about all of our children. As we know, Now social media is a centerpiece of our lives. It can be a useful tool for connection and communication. It can ease the isolation that so many people feel in the modern world. Technology has changed our universe. But like anything that is powerful, it can have a bad side. We have seen this already.
In Donald.
As adults, many of us are able to handle mean words, even lies. Children and teenagers can be fragile. They are hurt when they are made fun of or made to feel less in looks or intelligence. This makes their life hard and can force them to hide and retreat. Our culture has gotten too mean and too rough, especially to children and teenagers. It is never okay when a 12-year-old girl or boy is mocked, bullied, or attacked. It is terrible when that happens on the playground, and it is absolutely unacceptable when it's done by someone with no name hiding on the internet.
Okay, so you can stop it right there.
We have to find a better
right there,
way
lady.
to talk to each other.
Yeah. My initial response, like many people's when we heard that chunk of her speech, was, "What are you talking about?" Of all things, to bring that up, and that was ultimately the crux of the speech. If it grew to any particular point that she was making about what she would do and be as First Lady and what was important to her as an issue, cyberbullying, like that, that's amazing. When she says adults can handle it, but teenagers might use, it might cause them to react. Is she talking about Donald? These no-name people on the internet, like, that's amazing. Okay, the only thing that makes sense out of this is that, like 2 weeks ago, I think people remember, Kellyanne Conway, the Trump whisperer, who was literally brought in to BS Trump into behaving. That's her entire job. She's the one who has to, like, soften the news, give him good news. All bad news has to come in the form of good news. We're lucky the polls are down, so that'll help people drive the get out the vote thing. That'll make them more enthused. Yeah, that's probably the case. Like, that's her whole job, is to manage this, like, ridiculous, infantile ego. And she's very good at it. There's no way Kellyanne Conway is the Baghdad Bob, clearly, of the Trump campaign right now. But this woman's going to work like crazy after this is over. Like, I don't know any person in campaign who wouldn't want her running stuff, because that, like, she's like Selena Williams when it comes to, like, bad news stories. You just pow, knocks them back. Just no belief, no reality, none of it. But her whole thing is just managing this maniac. And she said, if you need to communicate with Donald Trump, the best way to do it is to get on television, and then he watches the show, and when he sees you say it on TV, then it's real to him. Like, if you're standing next to him and you go, Donald, you're behaving badly, he yells at you and he freaks out. But if you go on TV and go, well, sometimes Donald behaves badly, he becomes malleable. He only believes what he sees on television or on YouTube or what have you. I mean, he is literally a human troll. And so for his wife to come out and make the centerpiece of her entire argument that cyberbullying has gone too far and that we have become an ugly, angry culture, that statement only makes sense if she's been campaigning with him. Because his campaign events and the ancillary junk they sell outside next to the Make America Great Again hats, TM, get them while they're hot because they're going to be the silliest hat in the world come Wednesday, the horrifying fiction, Vince Foster snuff novels and crap like that they sell at CPAC and all that other nonsense that these guys are, yard sailing at these Trump events. Just violent, roid ragey people screaming at these. Of course, her reaction is the world is full of hate and awfulness. I got news for her, though. The rest of us are just trying to live normal lives. There's literally, it's absurd. It's, that this woman is actually giving a speech that's largely reflective of the life that she has because Donald Trump is her husband. This is her daily experience. And I bet Donald's screaming about no-name nobodies who, how dare they, talking on the internet. And then her own, barons of that age, that kid's got to have the best phone in the world, that he's either on the receiving end or the sending end or the observatory side of what goes on in the internet. And she's got to see it. If she's monitoring it all, if she's like any of the other women in Trump's life, she's doing the kid raising. She sees this stuff and is concerned about it like any mom would be. And yet her husband is literally running to legitimize that as a political force in the United States. Jerry in our chat says Kellyanne Conway will be hiding for the next 3 years. I disagree. I think she'll be hired right away after all this. She's the queen of the midterms for somebody. Because even if they lose, she did her job well. It's amazing. We'll be back and we'll start taking your calls. 773-763-9278. That's right, King David Lane. The problem is, it's like I think there'll be a big line of like, take the Make America Great Again. Was that by the way, King David Lane, was that a typo? Make it again? Because I think it should be. You already voted already? Good, Dave. Awesome. Yeah, Lewandowski gets a CNN check. Yeah, I'll be on. Get my own show on Trump TV. That's right. They'll start doing my show. When he goes back to, when he realizes the money is on the other side, he'll go back to being a liberal. Yeah, Driftglass. You're absolutely right. The chatter about Conway is that she's strengthened her brand. That's right. Because, again, what's the job? Not what's real. Not what's legit. What's genuine. What's her job? Her job is to spin and do it well. And she, she kicks ass at kissing ass, essentially, like at maintaining it. Like she, if it's almost like because she's managed to bring him back from 11 points to 5. Deeply flawed candidate. He doesn't, yeah, Billy, her job is to spin, but it's also to manage him. And I bet you she'll have there'll be work for her in candidate management.
You have less than a minute, and we have a full line, 10 callers.
Whoa. Awesome. Well, we'll start through them as they go. It's probably Steve from the Gold Coast, and that's 5 minutes, and then whatever.
Yeah, no, Steve's not on. It's Carl, Dave, Paul, and then Mark.
Okay, cool. Like it. In my defense, by the way, I did not ask for callers at the top, so I didn't leave them hanging. If they called in early and they've been hanging on for a long time, that's their own business. Of course, Charles. Everybody, that's the thing. This conversation, has value.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
If you're if you'd like to join in our chat on the YouTube channel, you're welcome to. I'll tweet out the link right now. But in terms of that, there's a bunch of back and forth about whether Kellyanne Conway is is good at her job or is terrible at her job because her job is terrible. But and that whether she and Katrina Pearson is nuts. Like, that's just silly. The stuff that she says she's literally out there simply because she will say anything to kind of win the argument, even if and I think she believes some of it. If she was just saying it because it was just like, I'll be a disruptor, there's almost value in that. It's ridiculous and it's embarrassing, but at least you have a strategy. This is just a mess. Let's take some calls, though. Who do we have first, Lady B?
We can go with Carl from Nashville.
Yes, we can go with Carl from Nashville. Hey, Carl, it's election eve.
Absolutely. Listen, I know you have the happy ending. Since I'm the first caller, I like to have a happy beginning.
Sure.
This time in 1983, I didn't understand 1969. Mm-hmm. But by this time in 1984, as a Chicago native and a Cubs fan, I had my own 69 and I understood it well.
You jumped my happy ending. You know it. You jumped my happy ending. Yeah. Understood.
Let me tell you, I had my 89. Mm-hmm. Then I was like, okay, I get it, 69. Then I had my 2003. Damn it, 69, I get it. Yeah, man. So
extraordinary.
Yeah, long story short, to go through all that and finally have it happen, mm-hmm. it was absolutely extraordinary. I wish I could have been back home to feel the vibe.
Oh man,
I felt it last year when I was there. People understood. For the first time, they actually have the best team, and it was from the beginning to the end. There's no fluke about this, and all of those guys are about 13, so they'll be there for a long time. So this season was absolutely not a fluke.
But the game was just nerve-wracking. We had band rehearsal.
Well,
I was rehearsing with my band, and oh God, it was back and forth. We kept checking on it. We were freaking out.
Well, when they gave up the lead,
oh God,
I never got nervous because I had a thought in my mind was, you know what? They don't have to do anything special. Just do what you've been doing all year. Just be the best team that you are.
That's right.
And lo and behold, the rain delay happened, and they got out there, and they was just the best team like they've been all year. So
they regrouped. Right.
Really no panic at all.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, now speaking of panic, Bill Maher said something last night, mm-hmm. and I'm gonna start pushing this. I'm gonna jump on this train that he's on, and I'm gonna push it. He said that what we are witnessing is a slow-moving Republican coup that has been taken. It has been accelerated since 2008, but it really has been taking place since the Reagan administration. And what it does is you put people in places of power in government that don't like the actual position that they have. They don't like the organization that they're running, so mm-hmm. they're running in the ground and make government look bad. And this Rudy Giuliani thing is horrifying.
Yeah.
And I think that it needs to be pushed more because Rudy Giuliani knew what was going on.
I guarantee he egged it on. I truly
he did.
Yep.
He did. And I'm going to give you an example. It was also coordinated because I was listening. One thing about the media, and I'm going to get back to this, one thing about the media that I noticed, they're okay to be a part of the mess that's being made, but when you trick the media, they get kind of testy about that.
Right.
And this is what I mean. The way they pushed it out is that it was such this big thing. So all day long until about 6 o'clock Friday when the media realized there was a big nothing burger, mm-hmm. the media was with it. They were pushing it, and then they realized, wait a minute, we've been tricked. And then somewhere between Saturday and Monday, the media realized that the Trump campaign was in on it because if you remember when everything dropped. Within 10 minutes of when it dropped, Donald Trump had a campaign schedule. It was like it was dropped right the schedule when he was going to go out and say something about it. And so there's something really, really, really sinister going on here with the New York sector of the FBI. There's some really, really nasty things going on, and I think that the American public understand this. And, and furthermore, if you're going to do something like this, damn it, do it in June or July. Don't wait till when 25 million people had already voted. So it makes them look stupid politically, and it makes them look criminal.
Yeah, well, there's obviously a mistaken concept that they can somehow influence it this late in the game. Like, this was their Hail Mary. It should have happened. They didn't need an October surprise about this. They had needed an August surprise, because then whatever Comey or them came up with would have time to work out. Are you okay? Are you falling down a flight of stairs? Do we need to send somebody for you? You all right? I'm yeah. But
wait a minute. How?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You are actually witnessing me at work.
Well, I appreciate you taking a moment off to talk to us. Always a pleasure, Carl. I'm going to let you go because we're going to grab another caller before the break, and because we got a full set of lines. Thank you so much for calling. Let's grab another one, Lady B.
We have Dave from Sacramento.
Cool. Hey, Dave, go ahead.
Hey, I already voted already, people. What took you so long?
Yeah, really.
Look at it this way. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting sick and tired of these people that are undecided. I mean, if you can't decide what the hell you're voting for, and these two people have been going for the last 19 months, then you're too stupid to vote, man. I'm just, I'm sorry. It has to be said that way, because it doesn't take a sixth grader to figure that out. That you have to let commercials to sway you back and forth to find out. Oh, I don't like this person. Oh, I don't like this person. If I don't like this, you need to stick to your guns, stick to your decision, stay with one candidate, and stop waiting to find out who has the last scandal, who's looking for a scandal. Stop doing that. Stay with one. You're so indecisive, man. Just stay with one candidate. And who cares who cares what the commercials put on one person?
Vote for the overall policies of what you genuinely believe. Because the vast majority of the situations, it's a totally good point. The vast majority of the situation is that whoever you vote in will attempt over the course of their run to do 8 out of 10 things that they've said on the campaign trail. They will fail at 4 of them because the nature of politics. There will be 2 more things that come up that you didn't know were going to be a part of this decision-making process, and you will hope that they will make that decision based on the ideas that you initially liked them for those original 8 out of 10 things. And in the process, out of the 10 things you went in, you'll get 5 you liked, 2 you didn't, and that's life. And 3 that never went anywhere. And that's just the mechanic of modern politics. It's a democracy. You're not electing a dictator. You're not electing a head of state as a crowned individual. It's too that part. I totally agree. And I don't mind your languaging about it. I think it's an absurdity. Appreciate the call, by the way. And when we come back after this break, we'll take more of your calls. 773-763-9278. I think we're still pretty much full up. So we'll take calls as soon as we get back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. My problem is I always want to talk to everybody. Well, yeah, Carl, the Electoral College is always defended by the Republicans because they believe we're a republic, that that voting on an individual level should be superseded by people who are in the position to make decisions on a wider scale. I'm talking to you, Jessica. That's right. Which is a bad habit, Billy. I'm sorry I missed that part because I was talking. Oh, the letting everybody talk? Oh, yeah, probably. It's just that I engage in conversation. I feel like this show's 6 hours long, and it's certainly not. And by the time I look up, I got a full line of calls, and the show's over. Yeah, and the idea of the Electoral College was that it could be, that the judgment of the Electoral College individuals could be superseded, by the fact that, they disagree with the serfs that voted. Dean asks, how significant legally were Giuliani's comments about knowing about ongoing investigations? Significant enough for him to go on the news and make a distinct reversal and change the entire, lie, but change the entire basis that he was going. I was talking about what I said was coming forward was this big push, and Trump was going to buy time on the major networks to do all this stuff that, by the way, he's not doing. They haven't done. It's not going to happen. So the on a personal level, I think it's incredibly significant. Here's the problem with it, and the problem with the FBI as well, is because Hillary's going to be president, and Hillary is the target of this, that it'll look like political retribution to just follow the law. To go into the FBI and go, okay, you, and you are going to lose your job because you were meddling in an election, playing sides, and you were doing, leaks and all that kind of stuff. And those people will immediately go get a job in the private sector working for the opposition, doing all kinds of shady shit. I said that we're not on the radio, so I can't say that. But that's the reality. There's criminality going on, unfortunately, inside the FBI. Yeah.
30 seconds.
Thank you. Yeah, Jamie, Barack should do it before he goes. He could start it, but it wouldn't finish. It would still be carried out underneath her. And I think you'll have to have another AG because of Lynch's meeting with Clinton, with Bill on the plane, even though it's not a factor. Unless later on he goes, I think there's some people who are shady in the FBI. He could say that's what we're talking about.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Welcome back. Let's take another call, Lady B. Let's get through these folks and let them say their piece. I'm going to try and not interrupt. It's hard for me, but I'm going to try. Go ahead.
Okay, we have Mark from Cleveland.
Cool. Hey, Mark, welcome. And sorry about the Indians, but it needed to happen, and better luck next time, and I think you guys will win next year, and I don't know, if you do, I don't care. That's great.
I'm not a sports guy, but the Cubs deserve the championship even more than we did, so congratulations.
Thanks. It's very sweet, and I hope you're safe in Cleveland for saying that. And I have lots of relatives. I will be spending my Thanksgiving in Cleveland. I have lots of family there and love everybody there. So, anyways,
cool.
Go ahead. I'm doing it again.
Okay.
I'm talking. Go ahead.
You only brought up a couple points about Melania's speech. Okay, Lawrence O'Donnell did a piece where he talked about how the intro music for the speech was The Age of Aquarius and how inappropriate that song was because of its lyrics about peace and love and honesty. And I just wanted to ask you, it's almost heartbreaking to think of how far we've fallen since that song was popular. I would like to know what your take is on how we got from the idealism of the hippie era to the angry, cynical world we're in today where we would even consider voting for a fascist like Trump.
Well, I think here I'll give you some good news. I think we don't live in that reality. I think if you look at Democratic turnout, disenfranchised independent voters who are disgusted by the process overall, who don't think the answer is in politics, and let's just say use that as an excuse to lazily not vote, but certainly not proactively pro-Trump or pro-Trump's ideas. That if you look at how quickly gay marriage, trans rights, even though, again, we're definitely having a fight in this country about those things, the speed at which they are actually growing, and we are as a society progressing towards this way, we do have a woman running for president right now who's more than likely going to win. And so setting aside, and we just had the first black president who I personally believe is awesome beyond measure, for the last 8 years. I think a big chunk of that Age of Aquarius crowd went yuppie during the 80s and are, I got mine, and I'm going to pull the ladder up behind me, in that group, and they had children like Paul Ryan. But I also think the vast majority of the society actually did follow more of that than we said, that it became ingrained, that it became, certainly it was the outlier musically at the time, and it became the norm musically over time. Like, I think, country music for the longest time was the only genre of music that wasn't open-minded in that respect. And over time, because of beautiful people like Shelley Wright and others, has grown immensely in what it can do. So I think the Age of Aquarius concept is playing itself out. I think America is getting better racially and in terms of gender and in terms of sexual identity and the like. And I think that this whole ugly process is us doing that. It's almost like, I said this during the break to the people in the chat room, but it's almost like we're in a couples therapy window of this. So a lot of heated stuff is being yelled back and forth, but it's because we want the marriage to survive. And in this, in this fight back and forth, one of the things that if you believe in the idea of the Age of Aquarius and you believe in the idea of, kind of hippie love first, attitude, it's important to extend that to those people who are angry. Because it doesn't matter how society adapts to that, ever. It doesn't matter if society has understood the meaning. Have we, as an individual, how do you take it in? And ultimately, if it has any weight at all, it has to have that weight in your life first. And so for me, the way that kind of ideology actually affects my life, both politically and sociopolitically, is when I look at the Trump supporters and the ones that aren't violent and dangerous, who simply just need some jail time to cool off in life, and that would apply to them when they're stalking their ex-girlfriends or just screaming at people or booby-trapping election poll signs and stuff like that. That's just normal run-of-the-mill in a country of 330 million people. I got bad news for you. There's a million of us that are nuts and dangerous. That's just life. That's just humans. That's just the volume of humanity. But the vast majority of people, pretty darn good. And as a country, as awkwardly as we do it, we are the country that is marching towards the rights that we have sought and that initially came up during that period. And that's my theory. It may be too pie in the sky or maybe too Pollyannish for some people, but it's genuinely true on the metrics, I think. So keep hope alive and vote Tuesday. I think we're moving in the right direction. We just got one foot in front of the other. Let's take another caller before we so we can try to get through.
We have Paul from Seattle.
Excellent. Hey, Paul, welcome.
Hey.
Good to hear you again.
Thanks. How are you doing?
Great.
Yeah. I liked your talking about, I guess I would phrase it this way, for the Republicans, it's always the worst of times.
Yeah.
The best of times were a long time ago. It's kind of ironic, though, because when you look at the Republicans, the conservatives now would like to take us back 100 years, but where would conservatives 100 years want it to go? They wanted to go back another 100 years.
Right.
And then conservatives 100 years before that, when you get right down to it, the conservatives really never wanted the Constitution. Yet they're the ones who claim that, we have to go back to the original intent.
And every written document, when you start talking about the Constitution, they start talking about the Federalist Papers. They don't even, no matter where you are in history, they want to go back 10 years all the time.
The Articles of Confederation.
Mm-hmm.
They'll even cite law from the articles.
That's right.
As if it's currently relevant.
Yeah, that the argument is more important than what the conclusion was. Right.
Exactly.
Because that's when my part got said.
Conway, for sure.
Yeah. Right.
Kellyanne Conway, for sure. That's no argument. There's nothing better part of the argument than the conclusion. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for her take. But this is what I wanted to say in terms of my point with Donald Trump and this bit with the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
And you know you're dealing with a real huckster when he will have you saying what he said.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying 2 weeks ago, it's all rigged, it's rigged. And so most people are going, oh, you're just so full of it, come on. But now when you have this business with the FBI, we start saying, hey, it's rigged.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think it's rigged. I think in any organization as big as the FBI or any kind of governmental organization or anywhere, the DMV to a Rotary group, there's some stinkers in every group. It's a group of humans. And when Barack Obama came in, there was this question about like making decisions about, whether you trust the generals and what their general proclivity is about Iraq and Afghanistan and getting out and, all the back and forth from a political standpoint of how we deal with Iraq and Afghanistan. And there were a lot of people saying, well, listen to the generals. Well, some of those generals were people who sided with the president. Who had been all along really wary of Iraq and Afghanistan, thought this was a mistake in the first place, weren't fans, thought it was always going to be a quagmire, didn't want to do it. But there were people who were put in place by Dick Cheney who have a long game of 30 years that Wesley Clark talked about, where by any measure, all they care about is control of the Middle Eastern oil in this 30-year plan. And so they don't care if it's a good idea right now. And so they were against the president doing anything but what Cheney, was advocating when he was in office. Those people were the same people who were in office when Cheney was there, and they weren't going to leave anytime soon. And it would be silly to think that in an organization like the FBI, that there aren't old-timers in there and long gamers who come from, who were put in during the Bush administration or even further back than that, who have a real chip on their shoulder about the Clintons or have a real chip on their shoulder about Democrats in general or liberal policies or whatever, or think that Black Lives Matter is anti-cop or, there's tons of that stuff. And it's not surprising that they're in there and that a couple of them will go, you know what, we could really undermine these people if we just, if people only knew. It's not even that they are like, let's lie and get them kicked out. They think that the reasons they hate Clintons are enough for everybody else to hate the Clintons. So if they let that out, then that'll be the linchpin. And when it doesn't land that way, when other people don't react the same way, it boggles their mind. So I don't think it's my feeling about the FBI has not been it's rigged, but that there are, and that played out this week, that there are competing factions in there, and the anti-Clinton faction is from the 90s is still there and fairly strong and is really frustrated that this is, that she's close to being president, and feel like she shouldn't be because, damn it, it just shouldn't, and that's it. So I don't think they're rigging it, but I do think in any circumstance, there's those outliers, those people who will try to be spoilers. That being said, when he says it's rigged, folks, it's a rigged system, he's not really talking about the FBI, and we all know it. What he means is the polls are ballot stuffing. He means old-fashioned, dead people voting, 1935 Chicago gangster, paying, Chinese immigrants with no papers to go down and vote, under the name, John McGinty, like that kind of stuff. Put 4 votes in the box and everybody gets $1 if they come out having proved it, and like that kind of stuff, which it isn't. The only person who's been busted for voting twice is a Trump supporter. That the rigging, that it's absurd. But I totally hear you. I did not flip into that flim-flam. I'm sure others have, but that's not where I'm coming from. I don't believe in that the system is rigged. I believe in human flaws, and I believe in humans with an alternative agenda exist in almost every major organization, and especially the stronger the mandate of that organization, the more violence is the wrong word, but the more ardent the supporters of an alternate viewpoint will often be. Military and law enforcement have to deal with that all the time. That there are those in their ranks that believe there should be another alternative that is not wholly legal or wholly ethical, but that serves the greater good, and damn it, we should just do it anyways. And those people don't just think, hey, guys, nobody's listening to my plan about how to, I think we'd get more followers on this app if we did such and such. This is life and death stuff, and therefore it keeps them up at night. It drives them crazy about this stuff. And I think there's a bunch of those people in the FBI who are still present there, and that's not surprising. There's a bunch of old guards there, who've been there since the, 60s and 70s and 80s, and they still believe what they were brought up to believe then, and the world is changing around them, and it's difficult to deal with. And that's because America is a frontline country on especially social and geopolitical ideas. So let's take a break, and we'll take a few more calls, and then obviously my happy ending was sort of deflated, but there's another one as well. I have a backup happy ending besides. I saw a dude the other day. Clearly he had to be East Indian. But he had the straight up mustache, and the dude just looked like Freddie Mercury with the most amazing tan ever. Like his skin was like super dark, but for all practical purposes, he was a dead ringer for Freddie. And I mean, his teeth weren't as, yeah. That's right. Zoltan for Hillary. Yeah, we got good numbers today. There's some people in here having a conversation. What's up? I used to bring a pair of buck teeth, like a little prosthetic thing, to the Improv when I would do stand-up. And I would just, they have a piano there, and I would just stick it in here, like that, and sit at the piano and go, Mama just killed a man, put a gun against his head, pulled my trigger, now he's dead. Mama, life had just begun. Yeah. But now I've gone and thrown it all away. Bum, bum, bum. It was the only thing I could play on piano. It was so funny at that time. And just do those opening chords. Mama! Ooh. Yeah, so good.
It's less than 20 seconds, and we still have 5 callers.
Right. Gotcha. Hi, Jody. Thanks for watching. How are you? Where are you? There you go. Hi. Thanks for chiming in, Jerry and Nancy. There you go, Jody. No, never had the mustache.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. It's now time for the happy ending.
See, that's what you miss when you don't watch the YouTube, is me singing Freddie Mercury during the break because Lady B threw in We Are the Champions. Let's burn some of these callers out. Everybody try to keep your stuff high and tight so that we can get to you, because I want everybody to try and get in. Who do we have first, Lady B?
Kurt from California.
Excellent. Hey, Kurt, welcome.
Hey, Hal. Happy Saturday to you, man.
Thank you. Have you voted yet? Because it's hard where are you in California? What city?
Well, I'm in California. I'm a mail-in balloter. I filled out my ballot last night, and I got my ballot all filled out. But you know what? Mm-hmm. I cannot find my envelope.
Uh-oh.
So I'm about to go online and see if I can just do a handwritten envelope, or otherwise I'll take it to the poll on Tuesday. I'm actually working the polls. Actually.
Yeah, you can drop it
so
in.
I can just drop it off while I'm working.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. You can just take it right in and put it in the box there. If you live in L.A., you have to drive all the way to not Downey, Norwalk, which is like, if you're in the Chicagoland area, is like, almost going to Indiana practically. It's the weirdest thing. It's in traffic,
that's horrible.
It's like 2 hours no matter what, going to and from, and there's a line out the door of Hispanic and African American people who have been watching the news. They're not going to get denied their vote, by the way. In California and especially in Los Angeles area, Black people and Latino people are going to be allowed to vote. There's no weird poll watchers. There's no dude in a Confederate hat stopping you from going in the place and yelling you shut up and go home. You're going to get to vote. But even watching the news, they're like, you know what? I'm not messing with anything. I'm making sure my vote gets in beforehand. I want to be part of the early count. You can just see it, and the line is going around the building. It's actually kind of beautiful to watch. So, good luck getting your envelope. But go ahead, make your. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I wanted to call because both Carl and Paul both touched on a couple things that have come to mind during this election season. But the first thing I want to say is that if you were to replace the driving economy of today, which is oil, and you replaced it with the driving economy of the 1800s, which was cotton, you pretty much got the same climate that existed right before the Civil War.
Yeah, I could say the only difference I would say is go ahead. Sorry, finish your point, and I'll try not to.
Go ahead.
I was just saying that the only difference is that the South was growing cotton, and cotton could be grown anywhere. And while it was an economic point, it was not a geographic resource the way oil is. Oil is under you. It is, it's in the ground in Texas, for example, and it's in the ground in the Middle East. And once it's gone, it's gone. And also there is no longer slave labor to do it. So the economic instant benefit of disenfranchising, not allowing Black people to vote, period, back then, but disenfranchising them now has an entirely different take. But I see your point as far as that. We're nowhere near the lead up to the Civil War, even as egregious as our conversation is now, largely due to uniform comfort amongst even those who are complaining. The people on this, the funniest thing about the Trump supporters who are flipping out, the world is coming to an end, are all tweeting this on their smartphones, wearing brand new jeans they bought at Bass Pro, and it could not be more comfortable, if that makes sense. Is he still with us? He faded down.
Well, yeah,
there you are. Good. Yeah.
Well, no. Of course, there are Of course, there are going to be some distinct differences between the 1800s and today. But what I'm saying, the vitriol. I mean, you have people that want to hang on to the past. They want to hang on to control. If it's not cotton, it's oil.
Sure.
They won't let go. And in the means to try to keep control of that, they use all of these wedge issues in order to separate blacks from whites, and I mean, if you let a Republican speak long enough, he always has something to say about the blacks in Chicago, the South Side of Chicago,
right,
and the crime rate and all this other stuff. And it's like, what does that got to do with the price of tea in China? Nothing.
Right.
And I'm just trying to understand, how come it just seems like it's always the bigots against the normal people trying to get our country moving forward?
Well, because I think we're the cutting edge of that behavior. I think we as a country, almost as a national identity, almost as much as we, in our founding documents, as all men are created equal, as flawed as the creation as that was, that's the intrinsic basis of our country. And so being on the cutting edge of that thought form, that idea that, we are going to be the edge of gay rights, we're going to be on the edge of women's rights, we're going to be on the edge of minority rights, we're going to be on the cutting edge of trans rights, and in doing so, we're going to experience the most pushback amongst those groups. Those groups are going to have, who live here, are going to have the most shocking response to it because their normalcy is constantly being disrupted by this constant march of progress. So as that vitriol is not going to calm down because of that, very distinctly, So I think it's because we're making the progress. It's one of those negative to show a positive situations, if that makes sense. I agree that it's sketchy. There's some sketchy, mad people out there. There's the Mahler group and the Bundys and all those crazy people. But they're not politically or socio-politically indicative of almost anybody. If you look at the Republican Party, even they are having to admit to, things like gay marriage and interracial marriage and all those things that were the crux of their entire political identity in the 60s, moving through the 70s, 80s, and then the 90s, is just by rote not even it's a non-starter now. Even those people are the outliers in their own group. Yeah. Right.
But what I'm saying is, what you see now, you have the new alt-right.
Sure.
Because now, since the old Republicans weren't racist enough, you now got David Duke and the troops trying to get into the political scene, and like Carl was saying, we are in the middle of a long-term coup. It started with Reagan getting rid of the Fairness Doctrine Act, so now our own airwaves are being used for propaganda. So now you got Melania Trump saying something that's the total opposite of what her husband stands for.
Right.
And all it does is confuse people.
Well, I think I think the reality was when she made that speech, almost uniformly, even at Fox of all places, there were people going, "Isn't that what he gets attacked for all the time?" They were saying that out loud. So I think one of the things is, again, there's this ubiquity of information that we are all dealing with as modern human beings. That a lot of it is crap, but the volume of it, while some people it softens their impact and they can't bring themselves to vote, move, make a stand about anything because there's so much information coming in. I think the vast majority of people like yourself and and people who care about the actual issues are able to discern, and go, wow, I'm getting a lot of BS. I'm getting a lot of propaganda from this. Our minds are almost tuned to it in such a way. In the modern era that it wouldn't have been before. I appreciate the call. I want to grab at least one more caller before the end of the show because we're running out of time. But great conversation. I look forward to hearing from you in the future if you ever want to call in again. Great call. Let's grab somebody else, Lady B, and because we got 2 minutes left. Yeah.
We have Mike.
Cool. Hey, Mike, all you, real quick. Give it a minute.
Okay, real quick. Yeah. I can tell you what's going to happen 6 months from now. Julian Assange is going to be walking around the Kremlin, and why is not anybody bringing that stuff up?
That's right. He's angry about it already.
Russia.
Right.
We got to fight against these guys. We got to act like Republicans and take back our country.
Right. Yeah. He's going to be wearing a trucker hat that says "Make America Great Again" with a Union Jack, thinking it's a Confederate flag. He's already been saying that stuff. He doesn't understand why we're not as upset about stuff. Appreciate the call. Yeah, absolutely. We're basically out of time. So I wanted to say the jobs report and the in all this, the jobs report that came out this week and the fact that unemployment is ducked below 5%. That there should, if we were in the middle of the Iraq War, we were saying, well, we can't, switch horses midstream because we're not sure, it's just difficult times. If we're saying economically we're in difficult times and we have a lot more growing to go, why would you switch economic philosophies in the middle of a circumstance like this where it's actually turning your way? I mean, honestly, that's the biggest thing I want to, we get very bandwagony, even on the, on the progressive side, where we start talking about, because we have to couch every discussion with Obama about he's not perfect, but I like him. Hillary's got her flaws, but we have to couch everything in that we can't even recognize the genuine wins when we have them. If you want free college, you want universal health care or whatever, one of the steps is a sound economy. A sound economy is always run by Democrats. Go vote. Go Hillary. And if you're thinking about voting third party, vote them down ticket, not this claptrap top of the ticket nonsense. We'll see you next week after this is all over. Recap. And go Cubbies! You did it! You did it! So... didn't realize I have a little Superman curl. There you go. Yeah. If she wins any of those individually, and she's won it because she's got even more than that. I really need help. I do need help. I need somebody. I need a producer and. Yeah. You guys want to see something cool? Hold on. I don't know that you guys have ever really. Okay, so this is my kitchen. You guys have never seen my kitchen, which is a bit of a mess right now. But I don't know that anybody's ever seen some of the stuff in my place. So I'm gonna show you some of this. Hold on. I'm gonna hang up. Bye, Lady B. You're awesome. There you go. I have a this is a Sinistar game, which if you're not familiar, was like one of the most obscure arcade games. No, it's not a Galaga. It's a. I'm not gonna give you a tour the rest of the place because I'm literally in the middle of doing stuff. So I have projects all over the place. But this is this made the move finally. Yeah, Sinistar was is a game from 1983, 82 actually. It was a Williams game like Defender and all those kind of things. But it was one of the first ones to use a voice modulator. It speaks. Yeah, so it has one of the situations, like this is literally, it has a voice in it. It goes, I am Sinistar or whatever. It scares the crap out of you. It's great. But anyways, there's a lot going on or whatever. I don't know who that is. Hold on, there's a call from there. Hello? Hello?
Hal, this is Scott Reed calling from Bachelor Limestone Project.
Oh yeah, hi. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Secret project. Sorry, had people. Yes, 1 second. But yeah. So, anyways, this little beauty has been around for quite some time, and now it finally is living. It now works. It didn't work for a long time, so now it works, and so it when in the middle of the game when you heard the game, like I think in the middle of the first segment, whatever, it started making noise. This one got. It's pretty. It's one of these kind of asteroidy games. So, anyways, I'll play it later. But I just, it's. Camden has not played it yet, but it needs to have. It takes quarters, but it's set on free play. But I have it set up kind of like a, so it works like a piggy bank, so that you, like force yourself to save some change. Hold on, I'll say it real quick. I don't know why I make quarters. That's so ironic, in my life to not have a quarter. But but like it technically doesn't matter. It probably, yeah, comes out here. This is so nerdy. You guys totally don't need to, hang around if you don't want to. But this is so. It'll take a quarter and then you can hear it. just kind of like the quarter noise. He's sticking his buddies. That's right. Yeah. Anyways, now that I'm finally starting to get moved in, I'll be able to go back to doing some like more personal stuff. And I honestly, like between me and you guys who've been in the chat with great regularity and all that, during the beginning of the summer before I moved and before, all that stuff, I was getting close to where I was able to do more YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. And then just moving and everything got crazy. And so now that I'm kind of, things are normalizing, as soon as the election's over and we can all kind of take a collective breath, or I guess move to Thailand, I can get back to doing some sort of all the project stuff that I've been wanting to do with and around you guys. So I just kind of as just point of fun, I'm still building the studio. Yep, that's one of the things that's like why I did the show from the kitchen, is because like stuff are like sparsed all over the place, whatever. Yeah, I use this to like, this is my, make sure I save my change when I come home, and then whenever I'm buying more of these. Carl, oh, did I freeze? What happened? Did it work okay? Yeah, there we go. Okay, now it's catching up. Sorry, it was frozen for a second. I thought, let's see. Yeah, all right. So essentially, I'll be able to do more. I was in panic mode trying to fix the feed. But then, as we normalize a little bit, I'll be able to do more kind of like periscoping and all that kind of stuff. It's just been an overwhelming summer, to say the least. That being said, right about the time I was going to take a break or whatever, I got Fuller House. That comes out December 9th, I think. I just did press for it. So, yeah, the 9th. And then I just booked a movie called Bachelor Lions that shoots this week, starting tomorrow, I think. That's what that phone call was about. If I couldn't, I didn't want to put them on the air speaking because I don't know who. I've never met anybody from the production yet. And then 01 shooting a video in 2 weeks, and then it's just like it's been nuts lately, like in a great way. There's a lot of great work coming, and we'll see where it goes after that. But right now, I have a ton of work going on, and it's really nice. Like I said, shooting this movie this week, and then Fuller House coming out on the 9th. I'm just in the last episode of Fuller House, as kind of a reveal for this one episode that they did, and so we'll find out next season if they get picked up. How much more of me you'll see, but right now it's just that kind of primary thing, and then I actually have an audition for another movie this afternoon. So things have been busy. It's been good. So I wanted to keep you guys in the loop, especially you guys in the chat room who are through the thick and thin of all this have been present. I don't know why this is. Safari's being a bit weird in coming. Reloop that. But I just want to kind of keep you guys abreast of the entire circumstance. Load chat load. So so that's where we are. And I just wanted to thank you guys just for being here week after week and being part of all this, and especially through this bizarre this bizarre election season, this bizarre year. Pac-Man's making noise in the background. This one has more games in it. This one, I loaded extra games in this one, so. But anyways, so I just want to, like I said, keep you guys up to pace on what's going on, and and that once this election's over, we can kind of get back to abnormal, as it were. That's right, Julie. Yeah, and including this one, which is almost the most amazing part, was meeting you in Chicago after all this, and what important. Did we get to? Yeah, we met over here and in Thailand. So 2 countries on that one. There's a couple people in here who have met in 2 different separate countries. Yeah. And I will be indisposed for a few hours on election night, working, but like during the day I'm going to be in all that, and then late at night I'm going to be, as the election results come in, 11, 12 hour here on the West Coast, I'll be up, no doubt, going in and about that. So, yeah, the 2018 midterm starts. Absolutely. Don't get me started, man. Yeah, Fancy Free, we actually met in international waters. Well, Jessica, I don't know. It's not about worth. It depends on where you are and whether I will be there and all that stuff. So, but I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this election season, getting back to kind of the policy aspects of dealing with, real meat and potatoes kind of issues, because everybody knows that I like the wonky aspect of politics. But anyways, you guys are awesome, and I just want to let you know I appreciate you, and we'll get back to pot knocks. We'll get back to dealing with those things, as we get after this election. And I honestly, and some people were asking, about my predictions for this Tuesday. I do think that there's a very strong chance, like Myers and Chris Schmidt and other people were saying, that there's a chance she could go north of 300. It could be a routing. That last minute embarrassment voters, what is it, 23 to 25% of Republicans in Florida are voting for Hillary in the exit polling. Or registered Republicans voting for her. So that's it. Some are switched votes, some are Republicans who haven't voted because they don't like people who are actually coming out to do this. A lot of women voters who may have been on the fence just about voting in general, been registered Republicans for a long time, came out. So I think there's a very strong chance that it could be an enormous win. I don't see it as being razor thin. I think there'll be some shenanigans and some worries. I don't think he may not concede, but I don't think it'll matter. And I think the idea of a Trump TV thing is a near impossibility. It's kind of stupid. If anything, Fox is going to go more centrist because of the failures of this, and Breitbart might infuse. Trump doesn't give any of his own money, so he might infuse, an hour of the show there, or they'll do some sort of like The Political Apprentice on a Breitbart network or some nonsense, or he'll just buy the Blaze. If anything, I hope he follows Glenn Beck down the hole of building a media empire that's more expensive and shiny than it need be. Well, I thank you, Exile. I like my earrings too. I think you're right, Billy. I think she will outperform the polls. I think they're undervaluing the Latino vote. I think they're underestimating the black vote. I think they're underestimating how women will vote for her. I think, and most of all, as a white male without a college education, because I didn't go to college and I'm voting for Hillary, so I'm in that group that they always talk about a certain age group of these are the men who aren't voting for Hillary. What mic is that you have? Ask Carl. It's a AKGP 120. I'm supposedly part of that group that isn't going to vote for Hillary, and I am. And hi, Lab Rats fans. By the way, I see you guys, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Julie. And one of the reasons why I feel like I'm smart as I am is because a lot of my friends did go to college, and in not being able to afford it myself, I didn't go, and it didn't fit into my career scheme. I read all the books that my friends were reading in college at the time just so I could have something to talk with them about, and I remembered it because I didn't need to just remember it for the thing. Yeah, so Billy, that was kind of the point I'm making, is that technically speaking, if you listen to the media, I'm part of the Trump demographic, and yet I'm voting for Hillary. When I was standing in front of Liz Winstead and Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks at Politicon, we're backstage talking, and Liz said, well, we're clearly all three of us are all Bernie people and blah, blah, blah. And I went, actually, I'm a Hillary supporter, and I have been the whole time. And I was like, what is the irony that the white guy without a college education is pro-Hillary all the way, and the two women on this are not just pro-Bernie, but were, in the case of Anna, were anti-Hillary, are violently against her, Yeah, so that's just extraordinary. But the point is, I really do think it's going to be a good Tuesday overall. I think the Senate will go Democratic. I'm hoping that the disenfranchisement Monday, like Republican voters who just are turned off by the Trump voter, who will either, is just grossed out by it, will be the voter that you see more of not turning out. I think that will be the case as well. And if that's the case, then the House will go Democratic as well. And so she'll walk in there with a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate and be able to get a Supreme Court justice on, which will be the toughest part for her. And then and if it doesn't, if it's just the House, then you'll see a lot of House noise about them, putting committees together. If we can turn the House, if the Democrats can win the House back, all the committees to put Hillary in jail that Chavez and all those guys want to put together are all going to have to meet in the basement about nothing, like they made the Democrats do about legitimate business. So yeah, had to go. Time to see Romania's nightlife. Good luck with that. Yeah. So anyways, this is our thought. And we'll see how it plays out. Like I said, I will be on in the early part of the day as stuff starts to come in, and of course late night there'll be a window where I'm working and I can't. But I'll be with you guys. And then next Saturday when we start talking about this stuff, like obviously there'll be a lot of rigmarole and back and forth about how the House and how the Senate went. It'll either be a celebratory thing or a here we go. Either way, it'll be interesting radio. But you guys are awesome. Be well, and we'll see more of you in the coming weeks. And then, like I said, more personal stuff. So keep it together. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you for joining me. It means a lot that you guys are in here. I can't stress that enough. It's such a joy to see you guys in the chat room with us. So, anyways, be well. I'll see you next time. This is signing off. See you later. All right, bye. Is so laggy right now. Sad. Just worn out. Poor thing.